Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade system storage, as well as networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today we're going to be looking at HPE's Aruba Networking EdgeConnect SD-WAN solution, which is a part of their SASE portfolio. The other portion being HPE's Aruba Networking SSE solution, which was acquired from Access Security. Now EdgeConnect was an acquisition from Silver Peak. It's been rebranded, right? And both of these again come together to form a SASE solution. Now, I'm not going to show the integration between these solutions because really what I want this to be is an overview of the EdgeConnect SD-WAN solution. And obviously, you can do a lot with this solution, but I just want to give you the basics of what's happening within this environment. All right, so what I do want to talk about here is the components that make up the SD-WAN solution or the EdgeConnect solution. There's three pieces. There's the appliances themselves, which go on site. Typically what you think of as an appliance. Actually, these appliances can be physical appliance, or they could be a virtual machine that acts as the appliance if you want to. There's also a cloud portal, I'll say, and this is where the connection is created, or the tunnels are created between the sites in this environment, between the appliances. It kind of brokers the connection. It's where you put the serial number of the device up in there, and it'll register itself with the third part of this solution, which is the orchestrator. That's actually the management interface. The management interface or the orchestrator could be deployed on site. It also could be deployed up within the cloud as well. All right, so with all that being said, let's explore this solution. All right, here we are up within the orchestrator here. Again, this orchestrator could be on-prem. It can be up in the cloud. Mine happens to be on-prem. Over here are the different appliances that I have. You notice they've got a little bit different icons. That's basically because this one, if I highlight it, you'll see it says VMware. And if I highlight this first one here, it says Silver Peak. Now, these are the appliances. They are organized within groups, and I have conveniently named them landing site, first, second, as well as third and fourth here. So we'll work with these systems as part of this process. Now, when you first log in, you're going to come into the dashboard. All right, we can see there's a tunnel that's going on over here. Plus, we got a lot of other information that's going on. Now, what we see here is dependent on what I have selected. So I have all the appliances selected over here right now. If I unselect them, obviously, what my visibility kind of changes, but I can go down and select individual appliances if I want to and get a little bit different information as I go through this. Now, with this solution, there is certainly a lot in the menuing up here. I know when I first started, it took me back a little bit, but you're going to find, like with a lot of different solutions that are out there, there's a few places that you go to actually configure things. As a matter of fact, I really like to use this search box. So for example, this has to have tunnels in it, right? So let's do search tunnel. I've got a whole bunch of things, and I think this one looks pretty good here, so I'm going to select that. Notice it opens up another tab. That tab will become sticky as you log out and log in, based on your environment. If you clear your cache on your browser, this will go away. But every time you log in, you should have a series of tabs that pop up. And over here we can see some tunnels. We can see some underlay tunnels. We also have overlay tunnels here, as well as pass-throughs, and these goes out to the internet. And this is some connectivity into Aruba Central. Right? That's a little bit out of the scope of today. So let's talk about what we're going to see running today, or how we're going to build up a solution. So if I go over here, I've got a diagram, and this is what we're going to build up the environment. So I try to make it easy for you to be able to follow as we step through this process. One things I will tell you is, or a few things that I will tell you, is that this WAN link is down, this segment is down, and this entire appliance is down. So really the only communication that's happening here is from this client to this client, because there's only the one tunnel. All right. Now the inside interfaces always end in 0. We can see that over here. And the client devices that we'll work with always end in 1. Another thing to help things straighten your mind is if you look at the third octet, the last digit here would be the site that I was showing you. There's site 1. Here is site 2, site 3, and Zoidberg's a little different. He's going to be 4. So I'll come back and refer to this diagram as we build this up in the environment. But like I said, there's only really a tunnel going from here over to here. So those are the only 2 solutions that are actually connected at this point. And if I take a look inside my environment, I got some VMware tabs open here. That's so I can get access to these machines. And we can see here Fry is actually pinging Leela right now. And if I go over to Leela here, we'll see Leela is pinging Fry. Right? But they're not pinging the other solutions that are out there. You can see that here as well. Right? And I can go over to Zoidberg here, and we can see he's timing out, as well as Bender. We can see he's timing out as well. So I did this through VMware so we can get access. We could see the desktop screens, but these aren't necessarily connected in any way. They are separate sites for all intents and purposes. All right, so let's go back to the Orchestrator. So I did say there was a tunnel that was created between 2 sites. It's between Fry and Leela. And we could see that in the underlay tunnels. And these are IPsec tunnels over here. We see Fry creating a tunnel to Leela through iNet1 to iNet1. And that's really how this product works, is you put labels on interfaces. And if the labels exist on different interfaces, they'll start creating tunnels between each other. Now, that's a high-level overview of that. I'm going to show you a little bit more on how that's done in a little bit, but this is just to get your mind started on that thought process. We can also see Leela going from iNet1 to iNet1 over to Fry in the environment. So there are these underlay tunnels, and then there are these overlay tunnels, which we call business intent overlays. And this is really how we massage the traffic within the environment. All right, and it's massaged based on bulk apps, critical apps, default overlay, and real time. And these are all pre-created for me inside the environment, and this is utilized. And again, we can see Fry1 going to Leela bulk apps, Leela going back to Fry bulk apps. We can see all those tunnels getting created all the way down. And then again, pass-through is going out to the internet. So I've mentioned business intent overlays. Let's take a look at what those are. So if I go up here again and I search, business intent overlay pops up. I can click on it. Another tab comes up. And these are those same overlays that we had seen, or business intent overlays that we see, and these are pre-configured. I would recommend using these and modifying them for your use within an environment, but these are pre-configured. You can create more if you want to. I mean, you could select where you want them to be associated with, and again, I'll show you that a little bit more in a little bit. But this is kind of like an access control list. As your bits flow around, it's going to hit one of these business intent overlays and then move the data around accordingly. We can see this real time is set up globally. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. It's doing it in a mesh fashion, and it has these labels associated with it. It looks like these 2 labels are in a group. I'll show you where that's done in a little bit. Now, I could select anywhere across this row and bring up another menu. So if I select here, you can see this menu comes up. You can see I can go between these 2 tabs. If I go over to this breakout traffic, select that, you can see it's just moved over to the other tab. So I can see these 2 labels are part of a group, part of group 1. Right? So if I have interfaces that have these labels applied, they'll start forming tunnels between them. You can see it's going to do it in a mesh typology. I could certainly change that if I wanted to. You can see the region it's associated to. And down here is the link bonding policy, or how we're going to push traffic across this environment. We can see the settings for this. Right, so these again are all pre-configured. There is a custom one that you can use if you want to change that. The only other thing I'll point out here is this is the real-time business intent overlay. So what applications does it consider? The real-time applications. And that would be these matching of the overlay access control list here. And if I edit this, you'll see there's a lot of voice applications up here. And again, this is from default configured in this environment, but if I needed to make changes to this, I could add a rule and then edit it, and I could hit on all these aspects. So I could create pretty comprehensive rules for how I want the data to flow around in my network. So those are business intent overlays. And again, we could see those being formed on the overlay tunnels, which ride on top of the underlay tunnels. And again, we have Fry talking to Leela and Leela talking to Fry. So let's do something within this environment. So let's go back to our chart over here. Like I had mentioned, this link is down, this link is down, and this appliance is down over here. What we're going to do this time is we're going to bring up this link. All right, I'm going to get you to start to understand the deployment feature on the appliance. So we're working with Fry here. So I'm going to go over to this bar. All right, there's a bunch of things that we could have here, but we really want to look at deployment right now. So I'm going to click on that. And this will be the end-to-end connectivity of our SD-WAN solution. So the interface it's connected to, the internal IP address. So you can see it ends in a 0. That's internal for us. All right, the external DHCP address, the labels. So this is where you place the label in order to be able to create those tunnels. I also want to point out you have to plug in the bandwidth of your ISP in here. And there are different firewall modes. I say this is not, exactly, we'll talk a little bit about firewalling label, but usually you set this for stateful plus NAT. Now, if I look at the second leg that's down here, it does not have a label associated with it right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that, and we're going to add INET2, which is a part of the same group. So we should see some new tunnels form after this. So I'm going to click Save, and we're going to close out of this menu. And in a little bit, we'll start to see some underlay tunnels form. We won't see any extra overlay tunnels get formed, but we will see the underlay tunnels. We should see things from INET1 to INET2 start to show up over here in a little bit. And I'll refresh from time to time. All right, there we go. We can start to see one of the tunnels. I expect 2 of them to start popping up. So it's starting to stand up. And remember, this is getting created on our behalf. If you had to do this all manually, these tunnels all manually, that would be a lot of work. Do another refresh. You can see both tunnels are coming up. And again, if we look at this, it's Fry to Leela. And this will be INET2 to INET1. Leela back to Fry, INET1 to INET2. And then we have our 2 originals that are down here. Let's see if we refresh, see if they've come up yet. Yep, so now these tunnels are all active at this point. Right, so that gives you a little bit of understanding of the deployment as well as the business intent overlays and labels and how they work together. All right, so right now, if we go back at this, this site is now up and it's got a redundant connection. It does not mean we're getting any extra pings that are happening at our clients, because again, it was just a redundant connection. So let's move forward and do something a little bit different. So this time, I'm going to add this segment. Right, we're going to get Zoidberg communicating with the world. All right, so when I went to the deployment on Fry, it already had this extra leg, so I kind of preset that up. And we could add WAN interfaces as well as LAN interfaces. So let me cancel this. And let's go down to Leela and let's look at the deployment. We can see the end-to-end connectivity. We could see the label. We could see why it's forming tunnels with Fry. We want to bring Zoidberg online, so let me add an interface. It's set to LAN 1. So as a side note, these LAN interfaces are pre-configured on the back of the appliances, but when you deploy a virtual appliances, you're going to have to define what's the WAN interfaces and what are the LAN interfaces. Now, if I go over here, we're going to put in our inside interface for Zoidberg. All right, so there's our inside interface. Right, and I'm going to click Save. And in a little bit, we should start to see Zoidberg pinging with everybody, but it will take a little bit. We will not see any more additional tunnels form, because again, the tunnels form at the label level. And if I go over here and we look at deployment, we will see the label is only on the WAN interface here. Alright, so let's go take a look. Looks like Fry is now starting to ping with Zoidberg. Looks like Leela is starting to ping with Zoidberg. Zoidberg is starting to ping with both Leela and Fry. Right, and of course Bender's not speaking with anybody yet. Alright, so that gets us a little bit familiar with the deployment menu option inside this environment. So let's move on to the next step. Alright, so we brought up this link. Right. Now we want to bring up this appliance itself. So I mentioned there are 3 components to this solution. There's the orchestrator, there's the appliance itself, and then there's the portal. The portal is where you're going to put the serial number for your appliance. Once you put it up in there, it will register with the orchestrator, and you'll see appliance is discovered up here. So when you see that, you can click on that, and you can see the discovered appliance over here. You can approve or deny it if you want to. So today we're going to approve it. Now, before I approve this, I do this demonstration often, so some of this stuff is pre-populated. I'll tell you what's been populated for my last demonstration, just so you get an understanding of what information you're going to need to put inside this configuration. So I'm going to click Approve. It's going to come up and ask me if I want to upgrade the firmware on this. So all these appliances have been updated to the latest. So I don't necessarily need to do that, but you should do that as a part of your deployment process, just to make sure the firmware is all even. And then you're going to come up to this menu. Now, the appliance name is already set here, so this will probably be set to a serial number when it first comes in. You're going to want to apply it to a group, and these are what I call the landing sites. So I'm going to put this guy on landing site 3. I got to put the password that I want to be applied to the local management interface. You won't go in there a lot, but it is a password you want to set. There is a region I can set. So for example, I could set this up with the US region. And what I would say with the region, when you set something up in a region, it won't form tunnels outside its region. And this is useful for if maybe data sovereignty type of things. So I don't want tunnels to be formed between the United States and China or something like that if I have a global company. So I have the ability to set the region on that. Right, but that's pretty much everything. You can set the address. This has got the correct address in here. We're going to click Next. And then let me see our friend, the deployment menu. So I do want to note these firewall zones that exist over here. We're going to touch on them later. Because there's only a default firewall zone, this is usually left out of the deployments that we were looking at in the past, but we're going to change that as a part of this process. Right, a part of this deployment, you're going to need to put in the IP address of the inside interface. Obviously that's been pre-populated because I've done this demo before. And you're also going to want to define what your bandwidth is on your WAN connection. All right, and I've just got something small kind of set up again because I'm just showing you the demonstration. All right, so this looks good to me. I don't have a label set yet, so this guy's not going to form any tunnels, but it will bring it into our environment. So I'm going to click Next. There are loopback interfaces that you could set if you wanted to. We could add local routes if we wanted to. And here's where we could choose what are the business intent overlays we wish to use. So these are all for the ones that were pre-configured inside the environment. But if you had configured any extra and you wanted to make some adjustments, you could certainly do that. There are also templates you could apply to these appliances. And these are the types of things that you'd put inside this template in order to be able to. I just have the one template. And again, this was here by default. All right, so we're done. I'm going to click Apply. All right, and we could see the success. It doesn't mean it's up and running yet. It just means we're bringing it into the environment. So I'm going to click Close. Alright, we can see benders starting to come up over here, but it hasn't been fully applied yet. So we'll go back to the dashboard. Alright, so it looks like benders starting to come up over here. So if I look at tunnels, let's do a refresh on this. Nope, it's not showing up over here yet. We should see something. It won't be connected, but we should see something for bender in a little bit. So we're kind of waiting for that to show up right now. While we're waiting, why don't we go and apply the label. So we'll go over to bender 3 and go back into deployment. All right, there's no label over here, so why don't we set that to iNet 1, click save, and then hopefully we'll see some tunnels get created here. Let's grab all the appliances here. There we go. We could start to see bender is starting to form some underlay tunnels. All right, if we go to overlay, we're going to start to see the overlay tunnels get created as well. Again, we need to wait until these come up. All right, but again, we can see bender to Leela, iNet 1 to iNet 1, bender to Fry, iNet 1 to iNet 1. Then bender to Fry again, iNet 1 to iNet 2. Looks like all our underlay tunnels are up. So if you think about this, right, we started off with 2 tunnels. And as a part of this process, we've created all these additional tunnels. Right? And it wasn't too difficult to do all that. Right? All the underlay as well as the overlay tunnels here. I know there's a little message over here. This will disappear over time. Let's go take a look at our clients to see if anybody's pinging anybody yet. We go back to Fry. Fry's starting to ping bender now. Right, looks like Leela is pinging everybody. Looks like Zoidberg is. Yeah, let's take a look at bender. You know, bender's starting to ping everybody. So, you know, we've completed this configuration, but just because everybody can ping everybody or everybody can talk to everybody doesn't mean that's necessarily how we want traffic to completely flow within our environment. We may want to only pick a particular solution in order to be able to pass on through to different sites or different groups of applications, we could say. Right. Now we could change that if we want to. Like I had mentioned, there are firewalls that are set up. So if I go under Fry and I click on deployment, right, there's going to be a firewall setting that's going to show up over here once you make some more changes, and I'm going to be able to massage traffic based on that. Before I make those changes, I first want to note I'm going to use my example application as remote desktop protocol. So I could select the remote desktop protocol over here, and I can talk to bender. That's bender's client IP address, and you can see it initiates a password. So that tells me that connectivity is happening in this environment. All right, and I can go back on over to bender. Again, I can go connect back to Fry. All right, and get access. But we'll say that I just wanted remote desktop protocol to work between these 2 sites. I didn't want anything else to work. Well, there are ways to be able to accomplish that through the firewalling features within this environment. So again, I'm going to go up top here. I'm going to type firewall. And you can see I have some options for firewalls over here. All right, so first, if I go look at zone definition, you'll see I just have default listed here. Again, if I go to firewall, I'm going to look at zone matrix. You can see default can communicate with default if I wanted to. Right, but I could certainly change this if I wanted to and add rules if I wanted to. Right, and we're going to do some of that in a moment. What I'm waiting for is I just want to see this appliance fully come up. Alright, so our appliance looks like it's fully come up. It's no longer grayed, so let's go and make some changes. Let's do firewall. We'll do definition. I'm going to add a zone. Call it Futurama. And I'm going to click save. And now if I go back to the firewall matrix, we can see default can talk to default, but Futurama can't talk to default. Futurama can talk to Futurama, but Futurama cannot talk to default. All right, and I can make some changes as a part of that. All right, but we're going to leave this as it is, and what I'm going to do is we're going to wait to see if the firewall mode comes up, or the firewall setting. There it is. The firewall zone is showing up. Now notice you can put the firewall zone on the inside interface. You can also put it on the outside interfaces. You can pick and choose. So you got a lot of flexibility that's wrapped around this. So if I go down to Leela and I look at deployment here, you can see I've got both the inside interfaces. Could have a different firewall zone if I wanted to, or I could just set it at the outside. I think I'm going to set our zone on Bender, so let's go over to here and let's click deployment. Alright, now I'm going to set the firewall zone over here, move it from default to Futurama, and I'm going to click save. Alright, and we're going to wait a second or two for that to populate. Alright, so let's go take a look at what's going on. Alright, so we can see Fry is starting to time out, going to Bender. Leela is starting to time out, going to Bender. Zoidberg's timing out, going to Bender. And Bender's not communicating with anyone. So now if I go to the remote desktop protocol, we'll bring that up, and I try to connect to Fry, you can see it's cycling out. I'm not getting that password prompt. And I will complete the connection, once we put this rule in place and everything. But you can see again we're timing out over here. If I go to Fry and try to do the same thing, we'll try to connect the Bender. Again, we can see that we're timing out. So let's go modify our firewall matrix to allow RDP on through. So we'll go to firewall matrix. All right, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select default to Futurama. I'm going to click add rule. All right, we're going to, again, I've got all these options. I'm just going to do something simple. I'm just going to do the port. All right, I'm going to click save. Make sure I enable both of these and click OK. You can see over here we're allowing to this port, but we're denying everything else. Again, Futurama, we're going to add the rule over here. We're going to edit that. I'm just going to do a port again. Right, and I'm going to click save. And again, we're going to enable both of those. And then we're going to click OK. And then click save. We get a note about saving the firewall changes. Could make some interruptions. There we go. So we are saved. Right. And in a little bit, we should see some additional traffic start to show up. I would imagine right now we are not going to be able to connect, but we're just going to give it a little bit of time, and we should connect in a little bit. Oh no, we're starting to connect right away. So that was pretty quick. So let's go back on over to Bender and see if Bender can talk back as well. You click connect. There we go. We want the password. I'm going to throw in the password just to show you this works completely. I'm going to click OK. Right, and again, then we can see the Bender interface and also, the Fry interface, and we can also see we've been logged out over here. All right, so that is a high-level overview of the Aruba EdgeConnect solution and the components that comprise it in order to deploy your SD-WAN solution, which again is a part of the overall SASE solution. If we go back to dashboard, you'll see all the tunnels that exist, right, that we've created. Again, we could look at the tunnels themselves. Right, again, from to, we've now got a whole ton of different tunnels as far as an underlay IPsec, as well as a whole bunch of overlay tunnels that exist. And again, the orchestrator in this solution has created that on our behalf. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.